Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to talk about QuickBooks' lack of financial data visibility and its impacts on decision making. I'm Bob Shago. I'm with Sage Intacct Product Marketing.
Before I get started, when we get into the real content, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping issues. First of all, we've got a chat box. Actually, the Q&A box is probably going to be the preferred place. If you want to ask some questions during the webinar, we'll try and get to those. I'll try and answer all the questions. Whatever we don't get to during the webinar, if there's a lot of questions coming in, we'll go ahead and follow up afterwards. And we're also going to send out a copy of the presentation and recording of the webinar in a follow-up email to this event. And also at the end of the webinar, if you could take a few minutes to fill out the survey, that really helps us see how we did, where we can improve, what things you might be interested in that we didn't cover. So we can cover those in future webinars and help you out as you're making decisions about your financial system. So with the housekeeping in place, let's look at today's agenda. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges you might be facing as you're trying to get data out of QuickBooks, some of the solutions that are available. We're going to look at a sample company, kind of a customer case, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the visibility that you can get in a more robust financial system, and we'll talk about some different scenarios there. And then, we'll get to more questions at the end. Hopefully, we have a few minutes to just dive in and answer more in-depth questions. And it could be any questions about Sage Intacct and about how things function and things that might be specific to your business. But if you think there might be other people that would like to hear that answer as well. So we talk about delivering on growth. So as the finance team, delivering on growth, we understand there's operational challenges, right? These challenges make it hard for you to deliver on growth, especially if you're held back by the financial system. If you're growing, you need visibility into how your company's doing. You don't just need a history of what you've done, but you need information to guide you into the future, to help make decisions. So most systems weren't built to provide that kind of visibility. With growth, and you've probably run into this if you've got a growing company, growth really isn't an excuse to delay the management reporting packet every month. If anything, growth increases executives, the management team's appetite for information. They need to know the right way. They need to know, whether their growth strategies are working, whether they're moving in the right direction, and they're looking for that information sooner, not later. So growth actually brings on the challenges of trying to do more with the information you have. And if the system's not giving you the information you need, or if you need to know quickly how to correct course. You need to get the right information to correct the course in your growing company, especially as revenue is increasing and decisions are increasing. You need to understand the whole financial picture. And this means getting information from the front office to back office, automating tasks. And, we've got, diverse people you have to report to. There's diverse stakeholders. There's people in the front office and sales that are looking for information. Distributed work teams in growing companies. A lot of times people are working in other offices or working from home. And you need to automate those core processes so you can see the data around those core processes. So when we look at signs that you're on a trajectory to outgrow QuickBooks, there's a couple things we need to take a look at. As your business grows, you kind of have to come to that decision point. When are you ready to move up to a more robust system? And there's some things that are going to show up. In other webinars, we talked about the lack of automation around things like billing and revenue recognition. We also discussed managing multiple locations or business entities. So today, we're going to specifically focus on the issues that come up when you can't get to the information that you need. We're going to talk about determining your trajectory in your company and avoiding waiting so long that finance starts slowing the progress of the business. We, as a company, and with our product Sage Intacct, we focus on finance, and we really want finance to be a strategic partner successful businesses have you really ahead of the game in finance, getting all the information you need at your fingertips. So as we look at, where you may be with QuickBooks, as I've talked to people and where they are in QuickBooks and when they've decided to make the decision, I've worked in several businesses where we were running on QuickBooks and moved to a more robust system. And one thing we found is, in talking to people, is that finance provides information on a request basis. So you become this single source of information. People are coming to you from departments, managers are calling you to get information. Finance just gets buried in requests from different departments to get the information they need to run their business, their part of the business properly. So you start building reporting packages, and these require a lot of manual processing. So, and reporting packages, the business impact of all this manual touching of reporting and creating these packages in Excel means that you're waiting days or even weeks after the end of a reporting period before people can see how they actually did. So it becomes a history and not something to guide decisions by getting up-to-the-minute information. When filtering is limited to the chart of accounts and class, which is what you have in QuickBooks, right, you can just look at the chart of accounts in class. To get any meaningful analysis means that you have to actually build out your chart of accounts until it becomes unwieldy, right? You're building accounts for multiple repeated accounts for different for each department and for each location, and just really bloating the chart of accounts. And then you're exporting to spreadsheets to do the kind of filtering you need to get the right information. And so we found ways that there's a lot of ways you can avoid this. You get more up-to-date information if you can avoid that, and you get a more manageable chart of accounts. So I'm going to point out a little bit about that as we go along. Also in QuickBooks, you don't have consolidations for multiple entities. QuickBooks is sort of a one entity, one QuickBooks file per entity kind of deal, and so you have to pull reports for each of those QuickBooks files and then consolidate them in a spreadsheet in Excel to get the kind of analysis you want and to see your consolidated view of your company if you have multiple entities. So growth often brings in multiple entities, and then you end up having to do those manual consolidations. And there's no advanced processes for revenue recognition. This may sound like it's more of an automation thing, but it's also a reporting thing, because when you don't have advanced processes for revenue recognition, you don't have visibility into your future cash position. And if you are able to get visibility through, creating some advanced macros in Excel and building complex spreadsheets, what you've got is a really fragile system. And it's also a system that's generally not as secure as it should be. It's not kept within the security that your financial system should be kept in. So those are some of the issues that you deal with being a single source of information and using QuickBooks to manage those financials in your growing business. It was great when you were starting up, but you start seeing these things as you have a growing business and you start getting more locations or you start seeing more complex processes. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about different types of reporting when we move into the actual demonstration portion of this webinar. And I'm going to show you how stuff actually works inside these different systems. And I'll demonstrate first how we get instant access to information with performance cards, charts, and reports, and drill downs on dashboards. After we've looked at dashboards, I'm going to go ahead and move on to dimensions and consolidations. So I'll show you how you can use dimensions like location or item or customer to filter or divide out your reports. I'll also show you how to consolidate information from multiple entities and get a look across your organization. And we do this in a very automated way. And you'll see that in the companies that I'm going to demonstrate with. And then lastly, I'm going to point out our shared visibility. What I mean by shared visibility is that you're able to control permissions to allow managers to get in there and get their own information. You can give them access to reports, to role-based dashboards, to the different pieces of information that they need so they can look it up anytime they want. It's on-demand information rather than coming to you with requests. And you can limit what they see while allowing them to see the things that they need. So with that, I'm going to jump out of this presentation here, out of PowerPoint, and into a live demo of the Intacct product. So what you should be seeing now is my screen with Intacct running. This is a sample company. It's just a general business company that I've used to demonstrate with. And what I've got here is a dashboard. This is just a basic dashboard. This is our CFO's daily view. He wants to see assets, revenue, net income, expenses. And we do a couple of things here. We've got this information right in front of us. We've also got some charts on revenue for retail hour. This is a hard goods company. They sell physical goods at locations. And then we've got some net income by location. So they've got 4 different locations. And right now, if you look up in the top left, I'm in the top level right now. And so we're just going to work in the top level here of this company. And it's got its different locations and things. But I'm going to point out how we can break this into entities as well if we need to work in a multi-entity environment where each of these 4 would have their own entity and their own tax ID and everything for the state that they live in and run separately. But right now, I just want to look at the dashboard. And this dashboard would run the same under a single company or under a multi-entity company. What we can do is we can look at any of these. Like we can look at net income here, and I can click on this. Notice how it turns blue. It means it's a link, and I can click on it, and I can get a drill down right into the net income for this company and what's making up that number of net income. So I've got that $105,000 there. What's making that up? And I look at, I've got my sales, health insurance, benefits. I'm looking at last month and this month, the actuals. Notice I haven't paid my utility bills yet this month, so that's going to dip into this net income a little bit, so I can get a clear picture of that. I can export any of this to Excel if I want to. What these are doing, these are the performance cards at the top. These are looking at account groups. Meaning we take a group of accounts, we take a group of the accounts around revenue, we take a group of accounts around expenses, any accounts that apply to assets, and we group them together and we do the current summation for that month. Asset is actually accumulating, right? Revenue, we're just looking at revenue that came in this month. And expenses and net income, of course, is that where we're taking revenue and expenses and we're coming up with that difference there. I can go ahead and create other kinds of cards. So I can create calculation cards. Anything I can do with an account group, and account groups allow me to do calculations. And so one thing I want to add to this board here that's a metric for this company, it's a fairly simple company. It doesn't have a lot of account groups. I can build more account groups if I want to. I want to build another performance card on here. And so I'm just going to add a component to my dashboard here with performance card. And I'm going to look up something I want to look at here is I want to look at my revenue per retail hour. So I'm tracking the retail hours in my different stores, and I want to look at that per retail hour. And so I'm going to give this a title of revenue per retail hour. We'll shorten it a little bit, just make it look better on the screen. And right now it's got current month, and it's going to compare to the same period in the prior to the month, same period in the prior period. And if this goes up, I want a green arrow, so I'm going to keep that how it is. I want it rounded to whole numbers, and I want to look at change here. This is just a summary. This is a quick glance. And I've got these groups with the performance cards. I can put them other places on the page, but that's where I'm going to keep them. Now I'm just going to go ahead and say save. I could also add filters if I want to filter by location or filter to a particular dimension. So now what I'm looking at is I've got this new card, revenue per retail hour. So what that's doing is it's telling me, it's calculating the revenue I'm getting per retail hour that I've stored in the system. So I'm bringing in operational data that's getting reported by my stores on a regular basis, and I'm taking that statistical data that I've stored in the system, comparing it to some financial data, revenue, and I get this calculation. I can watch this go up or down. I compare it to prior month, do whatever I need with that. So moving forward in reporting, I want to look at reporting by dimensions. So if I've got, I can do reporting by entity or by cash flow. So right here we can see we can report by location. And as I As I click on this, I can see the actual report that's underneath this chart. So by clicking on a chart, I get the actual report, and I can see that I've got income broken out by location. I can look at Texas, Maine, California, Florida, and then all locations. I can see where it's coming from, sales, cost of goods sold, different things that go into giving me this net income by location. I can also look at details by item. So item is another dimension. And here I've got a report that shows sales broken out by item. And so if I look at those, I can see how each of my items are doing. Stretch that out to the right here, and I've got my Defender surveillance system. So I'm selling security systems here. And I can look at what kind of revenue I've got for this period and the total revenue across each of these items. So I can look at revenue per items. I can go a little bit farther with this, and I can go to my reports menu. And as I go to my reports menu, I can show by dimensions. I can show my balance sheet detail by entity. So I could go into more detail here. And I can show my balance sheet by entity. And I can look at all the things you'd want to see in a balance sheet, but I break it out by my 4 entities and then show all locations. So I've got my current assets, fixed assets, liability, and equity, and so on. And so I can look at this balance sheet in terms of, and this is current up-to-date numbers because everything's flowing into the system, and this is calculating everything in a current basis. So I can look at different things. I can also look at cash flow by entity. I can look at income statements, comparative income statement detail by customer, by department. If I was a nonprofit, I might be looking at funding sources. So what's my income statement detail by funding source? Again, I can look at P&L by entity and by different things. So maybe I can, I want to look at a P&L by on a customer basis or a project basis. If I'm running projects, I can also do that. I'm not currently running projects in the sample company, but it works the same way. Each project has expenses and revenue associated with it, and I can look at I can break out these reports by project just like I did by entity. Also, I mentioned that if you're running advanced processes like revenue recognition, you might want to look at something around revenue. So this is a different company. This company happens to be in the subscription business. And so they've got this digital dashboard with SaaS metrics, software as a service metrics, and they're looking at things like, their recurring revenue, customer monthly recurring revenue. They're looking at revenue churn, customer churn. Notice customer churn and new customers. These are statistical pieces of information, payback in months. So they're looking at all kinds of information here, but if we jump down to software and subscription revenue, this is a different dashboard. You can allow different people to look at different dashboards. I'm going to show that in a minute. In this dashboard, I've got this breakdown of monthly recurring revenue by product. And so I've got my 4 products that I'm selling here, and then I've got moving forward, end of August, end of July, actually moving backwards here, and we can show a comparison of how this revenue worked out. But if I go to my reports, I get something really advanced. This is one that really helps us understand our cash position, and that's if I jump into looking at revenue from contracts. So these are my subscription revenues. I can create I can look at a cash forecast. So if we go ahead and pull up this cash forecast, we'll go ahead and view that. The current date. I can see that down here in my subscriptions area, not a lot of revenue going on in maintenance right now, but in subscriptions, I've got quite a bit of revenue going on, and I've got this broken out. These are all my different customers, and I can click on these to drill down and see each of these customers and have their names next to them. And I can see rolling out over the next 12 months what kind of revenue, what kind of cash I'm going to be seeing coming from these customers. I can also look at a revenue forecast. I'm dealing with recurring revenue. So recognized revenue, deferred revenue, my billing forecast, what kind of billing I'm doing. And so I get a really clear picture in a subscription business or in a SaaS business immediately. This is showing me what's in the system right now. If I were to add another contract right now, these numbers would roll forward, and that information would show progressive cash over the next 12 months. I mentioned that I was going to show you how these consolidations work. So we've looked at dimensions, we've looked at cash forecasts. Consolidations, we've been looking at consolidated companies actually, both this company, this is an entity, Qubit USA, of another company. Its top level is here, ACS Soft. And if we looked at the dashboard for this company, and we showed the digital dashboard, we could see a different set of numbers than we saw with just the USA area. And this is as of today. My other dashboard is rolled back to the end of the year where I had some better numbers. But and in this GA, this first company we started with, I mentioned we were at the top view. I can jump into any of the entities. I can go look at Texas all by itself. It opens a new tab, and it pops open in the same place. I was in the report center, but I can pull up the dashboard just as easily. Look at my CFO daily view. So this shows me my assets, revenue, net income, expenses, just for Texas. Notice my donut chart here isn't quite as interesting when it's just for Texas, nor is the revenue. But I could build out a CFO daily view just for Texas and look at some more information. One thing that is interesting is I go down here, I can start seeing cash flow detail for Texas and balance sheet detail for Texas. I've also got this intercompany information where we're chatting back and forth. That's a built-in chat system called Collaborate. So this is, there's basically two flavors. When we have multi-entity, we've got multi-entity shared, which is what these are, meaning they roll up continuously. So if I added a transaction in Texas, that would show up on the dashboard in the top level. In that CFO daily view, we'd start to see revenue rolling in for that. And it runs continuously. We also have a global consolidation, which means if you have companies that have to have different charts of accounts, maybe they're running in different currencies and have different reporting needs in different countries, we create a reporting entity and everything rolls up to that reporting entity. And so you actually just run that consolidation. You can run it on a daily basis or weekly basis or hourly basis, depending on how often you needed to see those consolidated numbers across a global organization. We also have shared visibility. So this brings up that sticking point that I've heard from almost everyone who's worked with, is working in QuickBooks, which is the ability to just see the, to just allow people to see the things they need to see without giving them access to the whole financial system. And so every manager in your company could be set up as a user, as an employee user, and they could see reports and they could see lists of things without giving them access to create transactions or to change transactions or really do anything, or to look in areas that they don't need to look in. And we do that on this dashboard properties. This whole dashboard that I've created here called CFO Daily View has permissions associated with it, and I can allow or deny people. So I could go grab another individual from this company. So A-Wing, we'll go ahead and add A-Wing as an allowed user, and we can go ahead and deny everybody. Now, A-Wing, maybe our CFO, is the only person who'll be able to see this report if I save the permissions this way, or see this dashboard. It won't even show up on menus for other people. And so we can create specific dashboards for groups or for individuals and just share them with that person. We can do the same thing with financial reports. And this is the same menu that we use, very similar to financial reports, and you create the same kind of controls. You also have permission controls to every module, allowing people, so if I didn't want someone to see anything in purchasing, I would create a role and I would remove everything from purchasing for that role. Maybe they're just involved in order entry. And so I would take away everything, all the views for purchasing. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, which will allow me to see any questions that have come in. And I do have a question. It says, are you able to upload budget amounts into the compare dropdown instead of a prior period? Yes. So these all compare to a prior period, but I could be comparing to budget. And that was in the dropdown for the performance cards. You can set up budgets within Intacct and then compare the current period against budget. So if I had a budget for expenses, I could compare this to where I am versus budget for the current period. Very good question. Thank you. That would be in the performance card comparison. So what we're really trying to get at with Intacct is, with Sage Intacct, is to impact your day-to-day life and be transformative. Right? We want to automate all the key financial processes, so we're getting that right information in so you can make really good in-depth decisions. We want to be flexible on a system that you can configure. So we haven't built in any areas, and all the stuff I've shown you, it's all been configurable by you as the administrator in finance. You don't have to go to IT to setting this stuff up. You can create, I showed you how easy it is to create another report or another performance card. You do the same with reports and charts. It's all configurable. All the reporting is at your fingertips. It's under your control. There's no scripting involved in generating reports. And this way we keep everything up to date and in your control. So we're getting to the close of this, and there's a question that came in. It says, how many budgets, forecasts can you load in a year? We do forecasts every quarter. Yeah, you can create monthly budgets, quarterly budgets, or just annual budgets. So there's, and I'm thinking that we should probably do we could do a whole webinar on budgets and spend control, and that would be of a lot of interest. But yeah, there's a lot of flexibility in how you create the reporting periods and the budget periods. And you create your own. You can create your own set of reporting periods and then create budgets against those same reporting periods. So you have a lot of flexibility there. So as we talked about trajectory, I just wanted to point out, it's one of my favorite pieces of information. As we've talked to our customers and surveyed our customers, 80% of our customers wish they had switched sooner, meaning they waited until they were in the death throes with their old system before they switched, rather than getting a jump start on it and getting this kind of information flowing in their growing company and actually accelerating their growth through better financial information. I'm going to turn this over to any additional questions. I think we can allow about 2 more minutes for questions, and then we're going to be done. So one of the questions that I get on reporting frequently is, what dimensions can I report by? And that's an interesting question because we've got 10 standard dimensions, depending on what you've loaded up, right? Because project is a dimension and contract is a dimension, but if you're using the contract module and the project module. And warehouse is a dimension if you're using inventory. So those 3, and then there's 7 other dimensions that pretty much apply to any system, like location, customer, vendor, item, employee, department. And so you've got these standard dimensions, but we allow you to create custom dimensions as well. And you can define your own dimension and then have it be a tag in all your transactions and journal entries and invoices and bills, so that you can track information against that custom dimension. And so really it's limitless. It's as many as your brain can hold. You reach a limit where you can't keep track of any more dimensions. If you have things in your company that your business is unique and you need to track and it's not one of our standard dimensions, you can define it as a custom dimension and start reporting against that. Okay, I haven't had any additional questions come in, so I'm going to just close up here. If we have some, if you're interested in learning more, we've got a 30-day trial. You also can attend another webinar. So we've got our whole list of webinars. That's at intacct.com/webinars. Please follow us on Twitter. We're always talking about what's coming in the industry, what's going on in the industry. We're at Sage Intacct. Connect with us on Facebook, Sage Intacct, or contact us directly. Go ahead and send us an email at info@intacct.com or call us. And we'd be happy to talk with you and help you make decisions about where your financial system needs to be and where you're going. Thank you very much for attending today. Please take a few minutes to fill out the survey and go ahead and email us if you have any additional questions you didn't get to during this session. Thanks.